threw me on the ground, put a knee on my back. Indigenous protesters are condemning the Vancouver Police for what they say was brutality at a peaceful demonstration in the lobby of a downtown high-rise on Friday. Social media footage of the interactions between police and protesters has called the VPD's conduct into question. This social media footage shows demonstrators in the lobby of a downtown Vancouver building that's home to an insurance office. They were rallying against the company who is insuring the controversial Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. It was the third day of protests against the insurance company. Corvin Mack was one of the 4 people arrested that day, along with fellow activist Bethany, who suffered a sprained wrist in the action. They say they were protecting an Indigenous elder who was thrown to the ground. They would drag me by my wrist, and when I wouldn't stand, they, which instead of picking me up, they would, when they had plenty of bodies to do so, they decided instead to force onto my wrist pressure in order to move me forward. Obviously, it's unnecessary, but I think it's very telling of like the historical practices of the police and the way that they're utilized by the Canadian Crown in order to hold down Indigenous land defenders and those defending Indigenous rights. Chief Judy Wilson at the Union of BC Indian Chiefs sees a difference in how police treat Indigenous people at demonstrations.
I was at the Greta Thunberg rally where hundreds of thousands of people were there. The police were just standing on the side and, were not violent. And, our Indigenous people, our youth especially, are standing up in regard to climate change and impacts to, by Trans Mountain. And they were treated differently. They were treated violently. They were treated aggressively. Sergeant Steve Addison with the VPD says how police respond at protests depends on the actions of protesters and whether those actions are lawful.
The action of the protesters that were occupying the building on Burrard Street on Friday was unlawful. They were trespassing, they were committing mischief, and they were obstructing the police officers in their lawful execution of their duties. That is why they were arrested. A number of people occupied the lobby of this privately owned building, and a number of people occupied the outside of the building. And what they did was they blocked people from being able to come and go. So it became a safety risk for people.
Addison says police allowed the protest to go on for several hours until property managers asked for assistance in removing the protesters. As for the videos showing the police interactions with the demonstrators, Addison says they're being reviewed by the Office of the Police Complaints Commissioner, an independent body that will decide if further investigation needs to take place. Mack and the others were released on the condition they will appear in court this May, with recommended charges of mischief and obstruction of a police officer. At the end of the day, the VPD is just another tool with Canada. It's not the source of the issue, but more so just a part of it. In Vancouver, Kier Junos, City News.